Okay, hello, welcome back. We are coming back to our adventure in Hex Command Nova, having taken maybe some time away from the game as it was. If anybody actually don't worry about the fire and smoke and so on that's in that fort, it's just fell off from the uh, from the destroyed Hoth gun turret. So ignore that for now. But we've come back to this situation, and we've added some, as you can see, some terrain that's interesting. These bridges that we printed, the girder bridges were added. Now we've done these before, but we use I think they were the Airfix pontoon bridge uh, set, and we use those. We use those from our World War II uh, collection of terrain, and we've done this before where we put them between cliffs faces, hills, especially when the hills are tall enough, and it makes for a pretty interesting mountainous adventure thing, especially when there's bigger mountains or tunnels. These things are very interesting, and there's no reason to believe that that wouldn't be the case on foreign or alien planets, especially where mining is going to be happening in our future. So, with these tunnels going through the mountains and so on, we are probably looking at that kind of a situation where these big bridges exist. Now, how do you get up there? Well, there's a bridge missing, but there's another girder. And by the way, you can see there's a bag of rocks up there. What we were going to put those down as an example of how to pretty up this terrain. As you can see, no body of water exists with no vegetation around the edge of it. And that's another thing. And no body of water exists without, unless it's artificial, without some kind of a natural debris field or banks, and those rocks represent that. In some cases, as you might remember, these rivers and roads are all made with foamies, craft foam. And yeah, we know it's cartoonish in color, but here is the reality and the massive benefit of using uh, foamies or anything craft foam, whatever brand. I think Creatology is one in the United States of craft foam, which I think is sold at Michael's craft stores. Not sure if it's also at Hobby Lobby, but I think it's a different name. So anyway, lots of brands exist for this craft foam. But as you can see, the benefit of it is it's easy to cut on demand and it's cheap. So you could have several, 12, 10, 20 sheets of this blue and this brown or tan for the roads, and cut it to, till the cows come home, any shape you want. Now, mind you, there's a limit to how much a length can be. It's, I believe, 18 inches is the maximum length for the availability for this foam. But that in itself is a benefit because an 18-inch length of something will fit in a storage bin. So obviously, I've got one bin of all this, foamy stuff. And that is to say, we've gone through transitions of roads and rivers before, and we've always come across something and we thought it was great, and then we ended up changing. But these foamies so far have proven to be the best of all the potential pros and cons that might be out there. What's missing, and this is the point, is there's no way to make it better than what it is, other than to add the bank debris, plants, rocks, animals, whatever, to make it look a little more realistic. Now, there is another instance. You might have seen a video where we drew the effects of waves and maybe white uh, details where we show the water is flowing, for instance, around some rocks, rapids, some disturbances in the water. We've drawn with a marker, and that was very effective. And also, we committed to gluing some of the rocks onto the foamies, which commits you to that piece and means that the storage becomes a little more, important, maybe even difficult, but at least somewhat more important consideration to be made for how to store it. Because if the rock or something is glued onto it, then it can't be removed. And when you go to store it, there may be issues of the fat of the foamy or of the foam bending in storage, curling, or being bumped up against another one with a rock and becoming, not flat. So that's a consideration. So when we had done this before with plants and so on along the edge, the best solution was to simply paint it so that there is no three-dimensional bush there, at least when you put it down on the table. Then later on, add the embellishments in 3D, like lichen, foam, lifelike for the foam that goes on trees, for instance. You can use that to put on the edge of the banks, and not all the time. I mean, not the entire length of the water, but it could be, especially in a jungle planet situation. You may have bodies of water with tons of vegetation in them, but then again, on the land, there's going to be a lot of vegetation too. So it's a balance. Once again, everything is balanced. But here, what looks to be fairly open terrain, you could say it looks like somewhere Greece, Turkey, Asia, Middle East or something, where it doesn't look like there is too much. But, in this case, maybe because we didn't put that much thought into it for our testing of the rules, uh, and so on. So here, what we were considering doing with that bag of rocks is putting the rocks down around the perimeter, putting some plants down. We do have both 3D printed and just foam type bushes to put around that. And then you might say, well, that's a lot of work and it's worth it. But for a test, not so much. It's not so important. But here, after looking at this for so long, we're like, you know what? Let's just put something on there that's a little different. Let's get some more interesting thing going on there. And so we're about to do that. Also, what we're looking at here is we reoriented the cameras to this one zone of the game table. Now, mind you, this game table is small. It's only 4x3. It's not a huge, BattleTech situation. But what we're trying to do here is we're emphasizing this little area. And why? Because we're going to have an infantry incursion or infantry incident happen here. Why? Again, why? Because we're testing the realities, the rules, and nuances of an infantry APC incident occurrence in this region. The objective is for one attacking infantry force to take this port and not destroy it, because they want the port. They, again, like the fort, you don't want to destroy the fort, but you want to capture it. So they're going to try and do that. And we're going to have some infantry come in from all angles now, from the top of the map, as you see here on both camera views. Just ignore the presence of those mechs, because that's an episode that has passed. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use some infantry, and we're going to put them in, and they're going to enter in APCs, and it's just going to be an infantry fight, a small infantry fight, as you can imagine, and hence the reason we were going to put down the terrain around the perimeter of this body of water, because it just looks kind of, not so cool. So we might do that. We'll come back, and part 2, this would be episode 5.